Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Sports Card Academy. Today, I am very pleased to have on Justin. He is the man behind the collection at 610SportsCards on Instagram, one of the most impressive and well-curated high-end basketball card collections on the platform. Today, we'll chat about the high end of the basketball card market and hobby, the impact of fractional share companies, and much, much more. Without further ado, welcome aboard, Justin. Thanks for being with us today.
Hello, Chris. I certainly appreciate it. We've been working on this for a while now and very happy to be able to coordinate work and life and all points in between to be able to catch up. So I very much appreciate the invite.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and I'm honored to be talking to someone with such a wide and broad experience in the hobby and a collection that's just as impressive as yours. So from the outset, can you tell us a little bit about your background in the hobby and what you collect for anyone that's unfamiliar with your collection?
Sure. So I got my start as a kid, kind of like we all did, ripping packs at wherever your local convenience store or department store or whatever it was, whatever the case might be. Unfortunately, I collected probably during the peak of the junk wax era. So I was opening packs late 80s, early 90s. Once I hit high school, that stopped. I got back into it a little bit in college, thanks to a really good friend of mine. Bought a little bit, sold a little bit there, stopped. And this was around the mid 2000s, and then picked it up probably late 2000s, early 2010. So I've been doing it fairly regularly for the past 10 years. And I like to tell people, I've kind of done it all from a how to collect perspective. I've tried buying huge collections. I've tried branching out to other sports, other players. I've tried prospecting. And for whatever reason, it just didn't stick. I enjoy football, but I'm not a big NFL fan. I greatly prefer college. So I just don't keep up with the NFL. Buying the lot stuff just got boring to me, piecing everything out and the time associated with it. So after kind of multiple iterations of collecting and approaches, it's finally well, look, what do I enjoy? I enjoy basketball, and I enjoy the big three: Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. For me, being in my late 30s, leave it there. They're my guys. I grew up with MJ. I was born and raised in North Carolina, UNC fan. So Jordan was the entry point, and Kobe came along and dominated along with Jordan through the mid to late 90s and then early 2000s, and then LeBron came along. So that's it. Basically, my entire lifespan is condensed into those three guys. So I just said that these are my guys. This is what I'm going to collect. Of course, I enjoy certain sets and players and things like that. But for the past 4 to 5 years, it's been heavily focused on Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. And kind of another reason for that is, as we were joking earlier, we're both CPAs. So, by nature, we're a bit more risk averse. So, I would much rather put significant cash or just cash in general into guys who are proven as opposed to guys who aren't. So, that kind of risk aversion for me is what further boosted my position, so to speak, and just wanting to stick with those guys.
Yeah. And I'm glad that the timing worked out the way it has, because since I first went from when I first reached out to you to today, those three guys, Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe, have gone parabolic. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but you touched on something that's very important, and is a consistent theme that has been popping up throughout the Sports Card Academy episodes is what is going to make you stick in the hobby. I reflect on what I collected as a kid, and as an adult, flipping back on all the Grady Andersons and Maglio Ordonez and Eric Chavez cards that I picked up as a little kid, just because I thought they were good players that were going to be desirable to someone else. And hey, they might hold value down the line. I had no attachment to those cards, and it's probably one of the reasons why I didn't stick through high school and my college years in the collecting universe, because there's no emotional attachment there. It was, oh, here's an all-star, I'm going to add it to the collection. Another one, another one, another one. So on that note, your collection has some really nice high-end basketball pieces. And I know everyone has a finite amount of resources to spend on the hobby, whether that's money, time, attention. How do you work up towards one of those bigger cards while also still staying engaged in the hobby that you enjoy?
It's a great question. And, as you aptly pointed out, the values, numbers, real, fake, the truth lies somewhere in the middle at this point.
Yeah.
They're becoming very real numbers for a lot of people. And whether that's from the perspective of maybe you're considering selling something that you thought you'd never sell, maybe you're frustrated because you're getting priced out of things that you used to be able to buy hand up. It's becoming more and more challenging. And I think for me, just the fact that my collection it's so narrow, I always joke, like before I go to the National, that I can fit everything that I own in a 2-row box. That's it.
Yeah.
And it took me years to get to that point. So when I see something that I like, it's often something that either I've been looking for or that I know is going to require me, whether it's selling pieces to accumulate some cash or trying to figure out what the other person might want in trade. So it's a much more kind of drawn out process, or kind of I hate to say calculated, but regimented process, so to speak, because, okay, I know that there's this, I know it's probably going to run X amount of dollars or value or whatever. So I need to get my ducks in a row. And I enjoy that. Like, I enjoy the consolidation process. I enjoy the making sure that my spreadsheets updated every single day, again, to go back to our accounting nerdery. So I pretty much am on top of my collection on a daily basis to figure out, okay, if I need to do something to get something I want, what can I let go? And I one of the things that I always point to is that I was at the National, I think 3 years ago, and I was set up, and it was on a Sunday, and I was talking with a guy, and he was like, how's your show? I was like, I had a great show. I sold 5 cards and I bought 6 the entire week. And he was like, what are you talking about? That's it? I was like, for me, that's it. I got a couple things that I really wanted to get. I got a couple things that I thought that I could, make money off of to pay for the show, and then a few things in between. And the same goes for the selling piece. Like, I sold some things that I wanted to let go, other things I got good offers on or whatever. So for me, it's the way that I participate now in order to keep myself in check is just kind of a very methodical approach to say that if I start spraying money and buying all these cards, and I start to break my 2-row box limit, like, it makes me nervous. So I know where my sweet spot is. I stay in my lane, so to speak. And, for the most part, it's been fairly successful. And, I think that I've been able to procure a lot of cards that I used to be able to get back in the day with just all of the hobby content and the new relationships that have formed through my sports card stuff. I mean, I probably have at least a half dozen guys that I talk to every single day. And it starts with cards, but it branches off to life, to family, to Netflix, whatever. And just to be able to sit down and it's just kind of hanging out with your buddies. And I think that's been invaluable in terms of whenever I get down about, like, not being able to get the stuff that comes in the mail, I can turn my attention or my focus to a podcast or a YouTube video, or, just FaceTiming with some fellow card bros. And that's awesome for me. So while the cards themselves are, my window is narrowing, I've just leaned on the importance of relationships and friendships that I've built because of that cardboard. And it's been a game changer for me.
Yeah. You touched on a lot of great topics in there. And I think at the core of it is each collector is going to have a different relationship with the hobby and a different experience. There's some people out there that are going to get all the joy in the world of going to a show post COVID and flipping through dollar boxes and hand collating sets from the 70s and 80s. But to other people, that's a death sentence for their hobby time. But you need to experience sort of each step in the process and each iteration of being a collector before you can figure out what fits. And then sort of along the journey, you're meeting like-minded individuals that are on the same pursuit to build and curate that collection that can really resonate with them, that you can be proud of, and maybe create a little bit of a financial nest egg along the way. Definitely not the sort of the sole purpose of why most folks collect sports cards in general, but with the market the way it's going, it's hard to ignore the fact that like you got a down payment in most people's collection nowadays for a new house. So it definitely brings in real life questions and sort of a self-reflection moment on what are you getting out of this hobby? And is there something that sort of keeps you in it, those relationships, those friendships? Or is it time to cut the cord and use that equity you've built up and take your life and your hobby and your experiences in a different direction? And I think,
and yeah, sorry, not to cut you off, but I both of the scenarios that you just presented are 100% okay. Like I want to make that very clear because there is there's an undercurrent, so to speak, of the true collectors. I'll never sell anything. I'll take it to the grave. Just absolutes, black and white. And I just do not agree with that because if this is a situation where you can use your good fortune from cardboard to provide for your family, to do something that you want to do, this windfall, so to speak, because of a hobby, if that's what you want to do, God love you. Go for it. Do it. That's okay. If you want to keep these and have them thrown in the box with you when you're shed your mortal coil, go for it. Like it's okay. And I think that's the challenge for me right now is just everything. There's no middle ground or kind of gray area for discussion and reflection and learning. It's just, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. Not to go Mandalorian or here or anything like that, but it's just, if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. And like that's a very, very kind of myopic approach to this. So if you feel that you've collected forever, but you've got something now that is life-changing money or could do wonderful things for you, awesome, do it. Don't think twice.
Yeah. And I think on that note, there's been the creation of a lot of very popular content creators out there that are just pushing the narrative that you can get rich off of sports cards. And what I think, I think folks are missing is that the majority of the collector base are picking up maybe rookie cards, maybe they're collating sets, maybe they're ripping boxes, but the financial pursuit is sort of tangential to actually acquiring and holding on to these cards. Like the showcases at shows are sexy, and if you watch like Sasha has a vlog and he's doing these high dollar deals and it's sexy, but how many people in the hobby are actually like that versus just plodding along, picking up a couple $100 card at a time and just enjoying it as they come. It's like the big dollar cards get all the headlines, they get all the discussion, but I don't know if it's necessarily an accurate representation of the hobby as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your intro, you had mentioned you had played around with the prospect game. It's so easy for new collectors, old collectors to try and find their new lane and fall into sort of the hype of hot new prospects for the season. What can we do to realize when a market is overheating on a particular prospect, and how do we sort of step back, acknowledge that that's happening, and reset to what is important to us?
Oh boy.
Loaded question.
It's always easier said than done. We should a full disclaimer there. And I mean, hand up, I am guilty of it to this day. You see something burning hot and heavy, and you're like, oh crap, man, is there still upside? I think so. The first part of the question, when do we realize it, or how do you recognize it? Just I can't stress this enough. Just trust your gut. If you see that a card has jumped by a significant multiplier in a short period of time, a medium period of time, whatever the case is, or the long term, 12 months or more, stop and just ask yourself why. And a lot of times you'll start to realize that you're seeing this a lot on certain social media accounts, that they're talking about how they think something is still undervalued, or they're posting screenshots of completed auctions with emojis, or they're posting screenshots of completed auctions and then asking, oh, what's mine worth? It's important to dig in and not just buy from your gut. Don't just shoot from the hip. eBay's kind of killed a lot of the resources, eBay and other options that we had to be able to research these things.
Yeah.
But you can still look at completed auctions on eBay for free. So go into bid histories. Like if you see 85 bids on a Luka base Prism rookie, click the 85 bids and see what's going on. And then if you see 78 bids on another Luka Prism, click the 78 and see what's going on. Like it's not the people that are discovering this stuff, they're not doing like forensic accounting or, crazy backdoor dark web stuff to find out who these people are. It's just simply matching up IDs. And you can, even though you can't see the exact name, it's easy to do that based on feedback, based on the characters that you can see. So the main thing is when you see, I don't want to go when you see something, say something, but maybe the say something is to yourself where you say, okay, self, this is odd to me. This was $100 3 weeks ago and now it's $500. So just take in kind of a step back within your collecting ecosphere, so to speak. Look at your socials, dig into the bidding history, dig into the population reports, and just see what type of pieces of the puzzle that you can start to put together to say, okay, does this make sense or does it not make sense? And oftentimes, sometimes it does make sense because a player comes out of nowhere and he just has a great stretch of games. And, at least that push is predicated on court performance. And, in that situation, there is some sort of, I won't call it, I think organic's the wrong word, but there's a much more reasonable explanation for why a card goes up when a guy's playing his ass off versus when a guy is out for the next 12 months on injury, but somehow his base Prism rookies have been gassed 5x in the past 5 weeks for no apparent reason. So this is something that takes work. It takes work to just dig in, to click around, to ask yourself these questions, but they're not hard questions to ask. And most of the time they have pretty simple answers. So just if you see something that seems off, take the time to understand why you think it's off, what you think is off about it, and just do a little bit of research, and you'll save yourself not only so much money, but it'll just help you become a much more well-rounded collector because you'll be able to identify these things when they're happening or even before they happen and get ahead of the curve for yourself and for your friends who, might be considering making a similar move. And then you can just kind of be like, let's pump the brakes a little bit and make sure that this makes sense.
Yeah. I got 2 follow-up points to that. The first is just keeping prospects in context for anchor players. And when you're a Jordan collector, when you are a Kobe collector, you're intimately aware of those guys' markets. So if you can find a card to approximate a base Prism or a Prism Silver, You can sort of judge if the market's overheating or not. I know you're not a baseball guy, but my PC is of Mookie Betts, and his Bowman Chrome, first Bowman Chrome in a BGS 9.510 is, I don't know, $1,500. I think it's up to $2,000 now. But you compare that to the same card of Juan Soto, who is an up and coming prospect who really, he won a World Series, but he hasn't accomplished much in terms of individual accolades. The same exact card of his is selling for $5,000 to $5,500. It's a less accomplished player. It's younger. He's younger, and the market is being driven up on hype alone. Juan Soto will be lucky if he has a career that turns out to be what Mookie's career is. But if you were to go out and buy his card today, you would have to shell out $4,500 more, or whatever the math is that works it out, to go acquire that card. So when you're looking at whether it's a base prism, if you're looking to pick up a basketball card or a select, try and anchor it back to other players that you know the market of and say, does this make sense? Sometimes there's market inefficiencies. You look at guys like Chris Paul, who's got no hobby market, and he is top 5 point guards of the last 3-4 decades. You got to ask yourself why. And then the other point I wanted to follow up on was, you had alluded to checking eBay history and the bids and shills. And I had tweeted something out a couple weeks ago now that just said shilling is an active form of fraud that's widely perpetrated throughout the hobby. If you think it's a victimless crime, keep this formula in mind. The extrinsic value of a card, your market price, is equal to what the card is really worth to someone, plus cheating costs or the shill. Don't feed the beast. Call those shills out when you see them. So I think we all get so caught up in, oh, this card just sold for that. This card sold for that. I have a copy of that. Like, we stand to personally gain from that. But on the buyer's perspective, I now have to pay $700 for a card that I could have bought for $200 last week. How is that going to impact the hobby? Well, there's going to be much fewer cards transacted than is sort of what the market wants in general. As a buyer, I'm less incentivized to go out and buy more of these cards. And then it's an overall drag on the collector base that's really fueling the hobby. But eBay doesn't seem like they're in any position to go out and police this and clean up fake sales. And I can't speak to their shilling policies, but they say they have something in place. I don't think it's very well regulated, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on those.
No, the first point that you mentioned, that's a great call, in terms of how certain cards, whether it's cards from a certain year, a rookie class, a set, can be tied in value to other cards. So for an example right now is we all know what the MJ Fleer PSA 10 is selling for on its own. What we're starting to see is the price of that single card as a PSA 10 suck up every single other PSA 10 card of every other player within that set. So guys that they're not rare from a pop perspective. It's not like Johnny, I can't remember the guy's name. There's certain players that are a tough PSA 10 from a pop report perspective. And, I can understand why those are expensive, but Dr. J or Charles Barkley or Magic or just random guys in that set are all of a sudden jumping because the MJ is so expensive. That happens all the time. It's not just vintage, from a LeBron Chrome perspective or an 0304 Chrome perspective. That was LeBron's rookie year, and not only Chrome, but Ultimate, SP Authentic, SPX, whatever the set is. Other cards are disproportionately valuable, so to speak, because of the importance of the set. So you have to kind of factor that type of tying or association into your calculus when you're trying to figure out, does this price make sense to me? And to your point on the shilling, I completely agree. It's clearly unfortunate. And the thing that I thought of was, again, we see it so often on the socials of somebody who will post a picture, a screenshot of like a new record price for whatever card. Here, this should be another step in your process. Click that, see what the card is, click that person's Instagram account and see if they own one of those cards. If they own one of those cards, they might not necessarily be trying to gas up their specific card for sale at that moment, but there are reasons why people post the things that they do. So do not lose sight of that. Again, this is a very simple series of clicks that can happen just to confirm, oh, this person owns X card, or this person posted X card. Let's see if they own that card. Okay, they do own that card. That's interesting. And just add that little bit of knowledge to your quiver whenever it comes time for you to make a decision that you're trying to make on a card, or you're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like it's really, really important to not just take things at surface value and to dig in.
Yeah. Now on the parabolic price creases specifically, we've seen some record prices set across all the major sports. Outside of like the GOAT sales, you got the Trout Superfractor, Gretzky's O-Pee-Chee in a 10 rookie sold recently. Big money, institutional money loves basketball. Auction houses like Golden are killing it every single auction. It seems like they're setting an all-time high, specifically with Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron at the core of those peaks. Why do you think that the upper end of the market continues to smash these records? It seems like at every turn, there's a content creator, there's a hobbyist out there that says, this is it, this is the bubble, it's about to burst, and then it goes up 2x 2 weeks later.
Oh man, there's another one that if I knew the actual answer to all this, I'd sleep much better at night. But I think it's a few things. I think one of the things, and it's still a very real thing, is like we're still sitting on our couch during a pandemic. It's for better or worse, like we're still not able to do the things that we used to be able to do. So as we continue to have the time that we have available, it's gonna keep people online. It's gonna keep people front and center with eBay, with Card Ladder, with Golden, with Heritage, with whomever. And these auctions are just going to be, they're the things that we all talk about. Like they're the common link right now that, whether, I've known you for the past 5 years, or I just, quote unquote, met you on Instagram or something. It's like, that's a good starting point. It's like talking about the weather. So the pandemic is keeping the hobby front and center in terms of entertainment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think the combination of money that is coming in, it's, as you alluded to, not only is it a lot of new money, but it's a lot of types of new money. Yeah. So I think there's a combination of your investment class money, where people are trying to build a specific sports card fund that can then be sold, whether it's one of the fractionals, like what is it? It's not collectibles. There you go.
Collectible. You got collectible, Otis, and Rally Road. Yep.
Yeah. Whether one of the kind of the big three at the moment over there, whether it's trying to put more institutional type fund around it with what the guys at Alt are doing. That's a very real type of money, and that's just what we know about. That's not to say, if what you hear is to be believed, that there are already other funds who might not specifically be sports card focused, but they are putting in big sums of money into sports cards as an alternative investment class for their existing funds.
Yeah.
On the other end are people that are very wealthy, and it's nostalgia. It's just, they're more of a collector bent. And obviously, there's some mix in between where you don't spend $5.2 million on a Mickey Minnow PSA 9 hoping that it goes down by half in 6 months.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's the black, there's the white, and then again there's somewhere in the middle. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of money right now that is still considered disposable because it can't be put towards a family vacation. It can't be put towards whatever the other entertainment option might be. So that money is staying in the hobby. And you touched on Golden. We could talk about Golden and Ken in another podcast, but to Ken's credit, he has been the main man of marketing for the hobby for sports cards. He's on CNBC, he's on Fox Business, he's in the articles that we're reading. Like, it is always Ken, and he is pushing sports cards and collecting into the mainstream. And we owe, for that specific point, like, we all kind of owe Ken a thank you. Now all of the different side effects and offshoots that come along with that, again, that's another podcast. But Ken has been an animal with marketing the hobby, an absolute animal. And he has brought so much money and a lot of brand new eyes from a lot of different walks of life into our little weird corner of the universe. And then finally, it's just nostalgia. It's like, some of these guys, if they just didn't really know about sports cards before, and they're coming back and they're like, oh man, I used to own like a Barry Bonds Topps rookie, but now I can get the Topps Tiffany because I have money, or I can get a nice MJ or something like that. It's incredibly difficult to put a valuation on nostalgia. And that has to play a part in some of these just astronomical prices that we have seen over the past 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. Speaking of Golden, he had released like an Instagram live video of him unpacking some submissions, and it's just like $1 million card after $1 million card. He's just tossing them on the desk. I was getting all queasy. Ken, you got to protect those slabs, protect those cards. But I think you made a great point, especially on just folks are staying inside. They aren't spending money on other entertainment venues. Just like looking in my own household, my wife and I would go out to dinner all the time, like once a weekend. We'd sprinkle in movies and do different types of events. And since March 2020, we've been in the house and we got all this money. We bought a house. But we haven't really spent anything on entertainment. We haven't gone anywhere. No money is being spent on gas. And there's lots of disposable income that is freeing up from just a giant drop off in those entertainment and even just like travel expenditures. I think the whole narrative that like, oh, stimulus checks are propping up the hobby is total bullshit. It's more you had talked about, you had mentioned, like people just aren't spending money the way they used to. Now, once the entire country gets inoculated with the vaccination, I think that might be when rubber meets the road and we might see a little bit of a market correction. But on that note, do you think that the highest end of the market is experiencing sustainable prices? Or do you think that it's truly a bubble that's going to pop one day?
I mean, the answer is no. I mean, I read, so what I wrote down no, and then in caps, I said, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. We don't have to go full sky is falling when the next MJ rookie doesn't sell for more than $750,000.
Yeah.
There is going to be an inevitable pullback. We've already seen that pullback, whether it's the MJs that sold for the 750 on Golden, and then the ones that sold this past weekend on Golden for 600,000, I think. The one that sold on Heritage for around $6. We saw a pullback on, and I'm saying pullback, and these are still hundreds of thousands of dollars of sports cards, but there was a Michael Jordan 98-99 Upper Deck game jersey auto numbered to 23. So not the big boy, but the second year. There
Mm-hmm.
was a BGS 910 that sold in Ken's premier run for like $315,000 with the buyer's premium. And there was a 9510 that just sold this past weekend with a nicer autograph, and it sold for 225, I think. So it's going to happen. It's already happening. The challenge that I see is twofold. First of all, like you said, from a kind of a macro perspective, when we get the green light to go back out and do stuff, I'm gone. Like I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do a lot of it.
Yeah.
And there are going to be a lot of people who just completely jump ship on their computers and just disassociate from being inside for I was going to say a long time, but for a period of time. I don't know how long that's going to be.
Yeah.
That will make a difference. The other point that is of a concern for me is I don't know if you've taken a look at Golden's preview for his next premier auction that came out. I think it went live yesterday. He has so much stuff. So much stuff. I mean, I cannot even wrap my mind around it. Like in the basketball section, it's like lot number 1300. Like this is how far buried it is within the auction. Lot number 1300 and 1301. Again, I don't know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
But on like page 12 of the results is an Anthony Davis gold prism rookie number to 10, immediately followed by a Dame Lillard gold prism rookie number to 10. And these are on like page 12, page 11. So my concern is that, hey, wow, that is fancy. So my concern is that all of these people are seeing these record prices, and understandably, they're like, oh, hell, I'm cashing out. Let's go.
Yeah.
And this is so much supply of just not just supply in general. I have never seen any kind of single listing of high-end items to this volume. And we always talk about how death and taxes are inevitable, but you can also add the rules of supply and demand to that as well, because
Mm-hmm.
at some point that one curve is going to catch up to the other one, and like this is the glut of supply, and I am very curious to see how all of these listings perform over the next month or so, because I think everything goes live on Monday, and then he usually runs things for 28 days. So the next 28 days, 30 days, 25 days, whatever it is, are going to be very, very interesting in terms of pricing, and not only just pricing in general, but pricing on specific groups of items, years of items, or however you want to slice and dice it.
Yeah.
And the counterpoint to that is I always watch Golden stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get like 1 to 2 good steals, and then of course I either just bid on the wrong stuff and miss the steal, or everything goes expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many cards in this run. Something has to give. So like this should be seen as an opportunity for people who might have been on the sidelines for specific sets, players, cards, whatever, to say, oh hell, there's something I like in here. And there's so much of that just volume that there's a better chance, just from a pure numbers game, that something falls through the cracks. So there's a lot going on. By the way, just for all your listeners, that Michael Jordan season ticket, that's fake. He did not sign with he did not sign with that fat tip pen in that set ever. So that fat Sharpie, that's just not something he signed. And the fact that it's an authentic autograph is very disappointing. But if you go and look at any of the other signature, oh wait, is that a buyback or a camp stamp or a sticker on the back? I'll look at that later. That whole thing's just kind of fugazi. So
Yeah.
if you're in the market for an MJ season ticket auto, just do a quick Google image search for MJ Michael Jordan season ticket auto, and just compare the style of the pen that was used on all of the Google images that you'll get to that one. And I would strongly recommend staying away. But anyway, back to my point in my rambling. It's basically there's so much supply that I've never seen this degree of supply before. I feel like something has to give in this auction. To what degree that give is, or the types of things that actually give, that's what I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now that we're going through it, we're on page 8 right now, just littered with LeBron Chrome rookies, pristine labels, 10 refractors, exquisite patch autos. These could be headlines for most auction houses, and you're on
Right.
page 8. Um,
there's
and I
there's
guess,
three. I mean, just on that screen, there's 2 exquisite auto patches numbered 100, and there's 3 SP Authentic rookie autos.
yeah,
Like, and that's 2 lines of items on page 8, like you said.
yeah, it's incredible. I think on the flip side, there's a lot of people that are asking whether this is sustainable. And if prices can sustain in this auction, we will
Yes.
have an excellent barometer of how sticky the market is and how large it's actually grown. Because it's very unlikely that a single buyer or a small group of buyers is going to be driving a large share of sort of the activity that's coming out here. Um,
And that's a great point too that I hadn't thought about, because when you go through that auction, I mean, it touches every single corner of kind of the collecting universe. It's not like one of the early mainstream golden runs where it was just like 500 different exquisite cards.
yeah,
It's exquisite. It's MJ auto, like 90s MJ autos. It's Prism. Like it's got it's something for everybody, for lack of a better way to put it. Like,
yeah,
people will be able to find, regardless of the type of cards you collect, you will be able to find something in that auction where you're like, oh, I might need to start putting some cash together.
yeah,
And I think, to your point, is a very, very valuable one, in that if we can get through if we can get through this one without everything selling for like 50% of what it's been selling for in the past 4 to 6 weeks, like, that's obviously not that low, but there's a lot of good barometers that we're going to be able to kind of stress test with.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great microcosm for what the hobby is right now, and I think it's also important to understand that, like, a parabolic increase is truly parabolic. I had a buddy who is actually a high end Jordan collector reach out to me and just school me with a stat. He said the 86 Fleer uh, Jordan in a PSA 10 could drop 90%. And you
Mm-hmm.
guess what the value would be? $65,000. $65,000 is still what, 20% over where the card was at this point last year. It was a 20 or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
$30,000 card. Granted, $65,000 looks like a massive drop off from where it is now. But even if the floor falls out, the people that have been in the hobby for more than the last 6 to 8 months, it's still a net positive for them. So just like you shouldn't sell a card and then look back and say, oh, what would have happened if I held on to this card? Like, I could be a millionaire right now. I feel like when and if a market correction happens, we should keep it in context. A parabolic shift, a parabolic increase is not sustainable. So if you look at it over the long term, how does that compare?
Yeah. No, I agree, and there's a reason why Lamim's now infamous middle finger graphs of valuations
yeah,
on different cards. There's with the up, there is an accompanying down too, and it's just a matter of, what degree that down is, how sharp that down is. But again, that's just how this works. I mean, there will be corrections, there will be adjustments. This growth rate is not sustainable, but I think growth is sustainable.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, switching gears a little bit, we've seen the hobby fundamentally change with the introduction of grading and group breaking. And I believe that we're at another one of those inflection points with the trajectory of the hobby, with fractional ownership companies coming in, like Collectible, Otis, Rally Road. What do you think is in store with the hobby from an innovation perspective? What can the collector experience feel like heading into like the next 5 or 10 years? What a
Man,
weighty question.
no, it's a great question too. I guess I'll just start with the one end of the spectrum that I just completely don't understand. Like, I don't know why people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for YouTube clips, essentially, with this NBA Top Shot stuff.
Yeah.
Like, call me boomer, call me the old man. I'm okay. In this situation, I am okay with that because I just cannot wrap my head. And this is the thing too, like very smart people have figured out a way to make money off of this, and God love them for it. It's a market opportunity and they've taken advantage of that opportunity. Unless you are able to buy that clip, and then similar to how you can buy royalty or licensing rights to certain songs, and you can license that clip for use out to like influencer social media accounts or to a marketing campaign or a company or something like that. I just do not see the appeal of owning a single video that I can just look up. I mean, it's the internet. It's not hard to find a comparable video of Zion dunking a basketball and finding it for free. So that degree of innovation, if we want to put that all the way, all the way up with the moon, I'm not going to hop on the rocket with you on that one. I just don't buy that. In terms of maybe coming a bit closer to earth a little bit, like with the Panini blockchain stuff, I just don't get it. Like Tops and other companies have tried this to varying degrees before. And again, this was before technology is what it is today. But again, other than the actual blockchain cards themselves, like I just don't see people trading a digital sports card and having that kind of be the future of the hobby. Again, I could very much be wrong because admittedly, I don't really know how the hell that stuff works. But it just seems like Panini saw a thing and was like, oh, blockchain. Well, you put blockchain after something and everybody loves it. So I'm not necessarily on board with that one. The rallies and the collectibles that you mentioned, I mean, I think that it's a viable option because so many of these cards that people like are so expensive that they either want to be able to say that they own part of the card, or it's no different than buying 100th of a Bitcoin in the eyes of these people participating. It's another investment opportunity. If I can throw $100, $50, $500 at this, sure, why not? It's just a different way to diversify in something that they would not be able to 100% diversify into, because the price of the item itself is too expensive. Like that makes sense to me. There are kind of inherent concerns that I have regarding where the cards are coming from, who's providing the valuations, different things like that. But I do think that is a model that, if done properly, could be very sustainable. For me, though, I think, and it was funny, I was making some notes about this before the call, and the one thing that just struck me was that, like, and this isn't even innovative, but I think at this point, BGS, PSA, Golden, Heritage, just all the companies that we've talked about, they finally realized that this is a thing. It's finally popular, and they are going to be forced to play catch up and just hire freaking resources, or put the resources in place to be able to accommodate the demand that we've seen and the backlog that they have kind of brought on themselves over the past 8 to 12 months because they weren't ready. So while, proper resource allocation isn't a very glamorous innovation, I think that a lot of these companies are finally set in that, like, for PSA, we got 1 million cards in the backlog. Well, shit, in order for us to make money, we need to get these out. And whether it's throwing bodies at it, whether it's trying to come up with some sort of, maybe classification system of base prisms get, either X amount of time, or there's some sort of, artificial intelligence that we can use to grade cards that are just the same card over and over and over that are clogging us up. I do think that we will see companies finally uh, pulling an about face to put the proper resources in place to be able to handle the demand that's been generated, and the backlogs that have been generated as a part of that demand over the past year or so.
Yeah. And I think so. PSA was just taken private, and in some of the SEC filings they had, they're required to disclose their projections for the company. And in 20, I think it was 2020, their fiscal year, because they're an off year end, they had done $30 million in grading fees and authentication. In this projection, they said 5 years out, they will have 5x the segment. They're predicting $150 million a year in sports card grading and authentication.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could have a whole conversation on what went into those assumptions and how they're factoring into the growth. But when you're dealing with a 5x at a public, well, now private company, you're going to have a lot of capital to put into research and development, scale up operations, because you're going to need something to support that. Just a couple points on just the Top Shot and Panini blockchain. I think the collector profile that you and I are used to, people that are going to card shows and they're
Yeah.
buying up cards, those aren't going to be the type of people that are getting into Top Shot and blockchain. It's really folks that are familiar with a concept called non-fungible tokens. And you got this Ethereum blockchain, you got a discrete piece of code, and that holds inherent value. In the last month or two, whether it be Dogecoin or GameStop, it's really shown that groupthink is hella powerful. So there might not be any inherent value in it. It's manufactured scarcity because it's a piece of a blockchain somewhere. Mm-hmm. But you see people buying into pieces of the Mona Lisa, but it's not the real Mona Lisa. It's the Mona Lisa NFT. And it has nothing to do with the actual Mona Lisa, but it sells for hundreds of and thousands of dollars. So it's abstract. It's tough to wrap your head around. But I don't see a lot of overlap between the folks that are interested in those types of investments in alternative asset vehicles and the old school collector. And then
sorry to cut you off, but just, you're absolutely right. And I have to laugh because, again, this is me in my own little sports card world. It's like old man shakes fist at cloud, like get off my lawn type stuff. But you specifically mentioned something, the concept of manufactured value, and I had to laugh. What have we seen since the dawn of like the numbered insert? What is that? It's manufactured value. Like the fact that, and I've had this conversation with a couple buddies who are trying to figure out cards. It's like, one of my friends is a big Pats fan, and he was trying to figure out which cards of what's the running back's name, Damian Harris.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he wanted to get some Damian Harris stuff, and he was like, well, this one that's numbered 99 sells for less than this one that's not numbered. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, how much time do you have to get into like this whole concept? So it's funny you bring that up, but it's something that we kind of deal with every day. And the people who've been doing this for a while know that the stuff that holds the best value over time are golds, silvers, maybe a player's jersey color match, and the base, and that's it. And the 40 colors and parallels, everything in between, it's oftentimes low numbered.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hold up. So yeah, it always makes me laugh. Just the idea of what is considered value in any of these, whether it's Doge, whether it's GameStop, whether it's a Michael Jordan autograph, it doesn't matter. It's just one person sees value as X and another sees value as Y. So
yeah. Meanwhile, your buddy goes out and drops $400 on a Damian Harris plates and patches card numbered out of 99.
I think I beat it into his head. I was like, look, if you're going to do this, just buy contenders. Like that's, yeah. I don't do football, but like just buy contenders. And if you do anything else, I'm just going to so he did listen to that.
And then the other point you made on fractional share companies, couldn't agree more. There's the way that the companies are structured allow them to be very, I don't want to say shady, but they don't really need to disclose where the cards are coming from or who's retaining ownership. And there's conflicts of interest up the wazoo. So, like, if you're entering into one of those platforms and you're buying into an 86 Fleer Jordan, you have to know that there's a person on the other end that might be making decisions on what to do with this shell company, essentially, that you've bought into, that may or may not be in your best interest. So it's just something important to keep in mind. However, the concept of a fractional ownership of a card as a whole is akin to, like, I mean, Robinhood is on everyone's shit list now, but being able to acquire, say you're looking at a single Luca Silver, and you're working on a platform like StarStock, and you got a portfolio of stuff that you're flipping over there, but you don't want to spend the 8K on a Luca Prism, or even a base Zion is $500-$600 now. All right, I want to spend $50 and get some exposure to Zion, and I don't want to, like, a raw hoops copy of his card. I think that's sort of the next iteration of the innovation. I don't know how they're going to be able to do it from a legal standpoint. And I think there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built out. But when you're talking about PSA projecting $150 million a year in grading card revenues, well, what's Panini going to do? What's Topps going to do? Like, there's a lot of money that's flowing in. And if someone can figure out how to monetize it, there's plenty of incentive for them to build out the structure to make it happen.
Yeah. And kudos to your PSA CLCT tender offer video breakdown. That was absolutely phenomenal. And as you just pointed out, I mean, Nat's a smart dude. Like, there's no denying that. And I was gobsmacked by those projections because, it's obviously not this easy, but if you're at X now and you think you're going to be at 5X in 5 years, that means you have to grow at nearly 5X.
Yeah.
And not only do you have to grow at 5X, but if you're already operating at a deficit, so to speak, with the degree of the backlog that they have, it's like you need to grow more than that, because you're not at both items aren't at the same starting line right now. Like, one's here and the other one's out in California. So it's just a lot of very smart people, a lot of dumb people, and a lot of people in between are very, very bullish about the future of the hobby.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I just do not know how the next 12 months will differ from the next 24 months versus 36 months, and so on and so forth. But change has to come from these companies, and I think that this is finally enough for them to be like, my God, we could just be printing money right now. Why aren't we doing it? Are you really that intractable, where it's just you have this, the goal of a business is to make money, and just put the things in place to make the damn money? Like, it just doesn't seem that hard to simple-minded folks such as us talking on a computer.
Yeah. Well, I think it does two things. Nat coming in and buying out PSA is going to force the company to take a hard look at itself in terms of, are we making the best use of the technology out there that's available? One, and then two, Steve Cohen's going to want to try and flip the company 5 years from now back into a public company and get out with his seed investment tripled or quadrupled. So how best do they put themselves in a position to do that? And if they start crushing it and working through that backlog and pulling out cards in a sustainable way as to not collapse the market, it's going to put a hell of a lot of pressure, even more so than the pressure they have now, on BGS, SGC, and other just companies that are tangentially involved in the market out there. Healthy competition is always good for consumers. And I think when one starts to pull away from the pack, it attracts money and investment from places that we aren't expecting. You could see, this is just totally outlandish, but it's going to be a little bit hyperbolic to make a point. You could have companies like Amazon or Google come in and scoop up BGS SGC, HGA, all these companies, and through inorganic growth, just like create a competitor to PSA to sort of siphon off some of those funds. At the end of the day, it's going to be collectors who will determine whether they're successful or not. But there's a lot of time and attention that follow where the money's flowing. So whatever happens with innovation next 5 years, 10 years, I know that I am very excited to see what exactly happens and how it plays out. We're running up against the hour mark here, so I'll throw a couple closing questions out to you here, Justin. What is your favorite platform for hobby content consumption?
I think for me it's probably Instagram,
Yeah.
just because it puts it all in such a convenient little package. It gives me the control or the ability to control what I see from the people that I want to see it from. And I mean, hand up, I have been much more liberal with the mute options over the
Yeah.
past like 6 months, whatever, 12 months. I will continue to do so because there's just, forgive me, there's just so much bullshit
Yeah.
that I don't want to see. It is of no value or no service to me, and I just find that I am actively seeking out the bad instead of the good, and it's just poison. So it's not for me, and I would encourage people to do the same. If you just constantly find yourself going to the accounts that piss you off instead of the accounts that you enjoy, like that's not
Yeah.
sustainable. That's not good. But yeah, it's definitely Instagram, and I mean, I was a late adopter to Instagram. I think I hopped on October 2018, maybe either 2017 or 2018. So I've been doing it for a while, but still to see the guys like, RBI Crew 7, Ryan, to see Card Collector 2, Ryan, and these other guys who were just ahead of the curve on this and how they've grown and use that as a tool, for their business and just to reach their customers and the hobby in general. It's just awesome. So great.
And for anyone that hasn't seen Justin's collection on the channel right now, we're just going through, checking out a couple things. Anything you want to point out while I'm scrolling through? Any favorite?
I mean the thing that jumps out, obviously, that I always take so much shit for is the remote in the background. And the remote, it just started because like I live in an apartment, and for me to just try and like find good lighting, like I'm not a big fan of like the box lighting, the photo boxes.
Yeah.
I just like natural light, and I found that just setting the cards on the carpet and tilting them up a little bit at an angle, like they're able to get pretty good light at certain times of the day. And then the remote has become the star of the show. So if you see somebody trying to sell you a card that has a dirty Comcast remote in the background, and it's not me, then it's probably a scam.
Love it. All right, last question for you. If you could change one thing about the card hobby landscape right now, what would it be?
I mean, if we could just tone down the degree of self-promotion a little bit and focus more on, sharing stories of friends or reasons why you like cards, cool stories from friends about their engagement with the hobby, share good content, whether it's yourself or any of the other numerous options that are out there, and just let's stop making this so inward focused. And this is so hippie of me, but it's just so much of a turnoff for me when everything that I see or that I often see is inward facing. Like
Yeah.
in order for this to be sustainable, we have to keep doing this like together. And if everything turns inward in terms of how can I maximize my individual position, then you're either gonna burn yourself out in the long term at the expense of maybe short term gains, or you're just gonna rub a bunch of other people the wrong way. So I mean, this is something that Josh and Chris at Cardboard Chronicles, or that's just Josh, but I don't know how to the team of the card letter team. There we go. But they harp on it all the time. It's just humility goes a long way. There's a lot of people with a lot of nice cards. Some are more outspoken about them than others. But just keep in mind that there's reasons how and why people got to where they are with the hobby. There's reasons that people can get to certain places within the hobby that are outside of your control. And it's just supposed to be fun. I mean, really, whenever I start to get anxiety over the future of where things are going or auctions not closing high enough or whatever, it's just kind of like, just take a breath, man. Just call a friend, message a friend, congrats on the pickup. What else you have your eye on? Like that's fun. It's just cool to talk about cards, and what started as a hobby for a lot of us has evolved, but it's still a hobby. So just the value of humility, the value of perspective. And the last thing that I'll say, and I try and close with this all the time, but if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, you see something in an eBay auction, in an Instagram post, and it just doesn't make sense, or you have questions, please, 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 please reach out to me, reach out to Chris. Like, I'm always happy to help, whether it's thoughts on value. Do I think something's real? Do I think this auction was real? Do I think it was shilled? Like, a lot of times I don't know, but I'll share the information that I can glean from the analysis or from some digging that I'll do. And I'm happy to do it. Like, it's so important to be willing to share knowledge and share experiences, and don't be shy about asking for help. So again, if you ever need help with anything, hit me up on Instagram, and I'm happy to help out however I can.
Well said, Justin. Well said. You can find Justin at 610SportsCards on Instagram. No underscore there. There's a couple haters and imposters out there that have tried to commandeer the 610 sports card handle.
I don't live in Philadelphia. Like, I'm 6 feet 10 inches tall, so I always get messages from Philly people like, "Hey man, are you from Philly? Can I buy your handle? I'm from the area." I'm like, "No, you can't."
Is there anywhere people can find you? Anywhere else? Or Instagram the place to go?
Instagram's the place to go. Yeah, I'm on there an embarrassing amount of time during the course of the day, and we all get the screen notifications. So I respond pretty quickly on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have today for the latest episode of Sports Card Academy. Make sure to check Justin out over on Instagram. Again, 610 Sports Cards, and let us know what you think in the comments below. I'm Cardi-C, and we will talk to you guys later.